What's going on, guys? It's Apoc. Street Fighter 5. Magic number 5. Yeah, this video is going to be about Street Fighter 5. And more specifically, I'm going to go over my thoughts about what most of you probably heard Infiltration say this past weekend about the simplicity of Street Fighter 5. I'm just going to give you my take on it. But first, let's explain it. Okay, the main point he got across was that the game is too simple. Alright, before there's any arguments, let's get one thing straight. There are a lot of stupid, and by stupid I mean not well thought out ideas about him saying this. I'm getting things like, he's afraid to lose. He just doesn't want a game he's going to lose at. As if people forget that he can win with Chun-Li, Hakan, Akuma, DiCaprio. It doesn't matter. He's a great player. He won Street Fighter Cross Tekken, which is a simplified game. So people aren't thinking that through. No, look at the pain in his face. He didn't want to have to say bad things about it. He just got asked a question, and he was like, man, should I be honest? Because you could see he honestly feels the game is too simple. And again, it's not about backdashes or anything like that. He didn't even fully articulate that idea, and some people are confused into thinking that's what it was about. He directly relates it to the feelings Korean players have towards the simplicity of Tekken 7. So that should alleviate all confusion, what his point was about. He was talking about the simplicity of the game. So, but like him, I see Street Fighter 5 so far as a mixed bag. So first, let me praise Capcom for some of the things that it's doing. Before I get into Capcom exercising a previously failed philosophy and what needs to change regarding their thought process going into Street Fighter 5. And again, I'm going to be pointed about it, so don't get butthurt. This is competition, and I love Street Fighter probably more than most of you. And I love the FGC and see it as something bigger than most of you as well. So, and I know that because I've been around since the beginning, and I saw it for what it was before anybody believed it could even exist. So, and you can take that as arrogance, but that's honesty, and I'm confident with my assessments because I've been proven correct so many times with regard to this. You can hate all you want. It's just an opinion, and I'm going to be pointed about it because I'm confident about it. So, but let's get into what I do like. I do like the fact that we're going to number 5. Yeah, I love Street Fighter. It's good that we didn't have to wait a whole 10 years. But let's see, like Infiltration, I like the V skills and the V triggers. This is great. Anybody who is acting like, oh, the game should be simplified and dumbed down and, whatever, they're not realizing that having to understand individual mechanics like this is going to actually complicate all the strategies. Awesome. Not because they're being complicated, but because they're thought-provoking. They're mentally intriguing. If you face Ryu, you're going to have to understand how parries work. If you face this character, you're going to have to understand how, dodges work or how focuses work or whatever the character may have. And that's awesome. That brings variety between the characters and depth to the gameplay. I'm a big fan. Cool. Not that I'm a fan of too many mechanics. Too many mechanics or too many options for situations leads to randomness. So there should be a limitation. That's like, you don't want a chess game with, 100 pieces that do totally different moves each, and can do everything. Let's just have the whole board be queens, and you wouldn't do that. It gets silly. So yes, I'm a fan of thought-provoking strategies, but not of so many options that things become random. And there's a limit. There's a reason why why we had standards back then of which games we would put in competitions. We had criteria. Things didn't just have to be fun. They had to be, for lack of a better term, solid strategy and skill games. So yeah, I like the V stuff. Awesome. change they made recently was pretty smart. The jabs not being able to confirm so easily. You know, in games like Alpha 3 or whatever, you want to combo with the jabs, majority of the time you're going to have to, you know, with anything other than a light, you know, another light into a special or, you know, things of that nature, you're going to have to notice the counter hit and combo with the counter hit. Street Fighter 4, you got simple stuff like anytime you land a jab, unless you have a character like Vega or something where you need to have the skill of linking a frame, you're going to have to, all you're going to have to do is do more jabs and then, you know, link another move and then, you know, link a cancel. I mean, it's silly that you can go jab, 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 and then link a Dragon Punch with, you know, characters like Ken or something. It's like, I mean, you don't even have to be accurate with the Dragon Punch motions. It's just silly. So, and if the game is going to have more damage, you don't want to be able to just confirm off jabs. You know, people are going to fish with lights all day. It'd just be a really stale game, strategically speaking. So that was a smart move. See, I like that there's no invincibility on the backdashes. You know, despite what Infiltration may have continued to say, I'm sure he was going to explain depth of strategy as opposed to dashing in particular. But and he was using that as an example. But and I don't have a problem with invincibility on backdashes in Street Fighter 4, but some, you know, are just ridiculous. So you could just mash backdash and get out of pressure for free, and that's not what a fight is about. That's not what conflict is about. You don't want a game where there's no pressure, there's no strategy involved. People would just hold down back all day. And in a game that's imbalanced for defense, like Street Fighter 4, you get that. You get that. There was one event where Mike Ross and Gutex literally had to play each other or something, if I recall correctly, and they both sat full screen for the entire round. What are you going to tell me? That's patience? That's silly. And, you know, you could see as the game progressed, you know, AE was really imbalanced with characters, but you could see that they were trying to bring more aggression into the game because they've realized the flaw in strategy. They made a game where just getting the lead and working the clock, a really simpleton strategy, was effective. That's why you have all the new characters able to rush down. It's hilarious that people don't realize how silly and regressed Street Fighter 4 already is. And let's see, doing their best to remove option selects, another awesome thing. There's always been option selects in Street Fighter. Don't make the mistake of thinking otherwise. However, Street Fighter 4, it was just crazy. If you learn the option selects, I don't really bother with them. It's simplified strategy. I'm not a fan of that. Not that you need to have complicated things going on. You need to have smart and intelligent situations going on, and they shouldn't be brainless. And once you add option selects, you are covering all the possible options without having to think. Not thinking, brainless. You understand? I'm not sure if I like the lack of hard knockdowns so much, but one of the major flaws of Street Fighter 4 is the way they program the way characters turn around. This led to things like unblockables and flowchart nonsense like that. That's really unfortunate, and they never really fixed. They addressed it, but it's never really been fixed. So it'll be interesting to see if that's fixed in Street Fighter 5. I think they're circumventing it with a quick get up rather than a delayed knockdown, which I think should have happened in Ultra. You know, we already call it Slow Fighter 4. I don't think delayed wake up was necessarily the best solution either. But either way, they improved the strategy of the game by not allowing for that simple, stupid nonsense. So another thing I also like about the lack of hard knockdowns is it keeps the action going. There are so many situations that can be made to feel comfortable. You're not supposed to be comfortable in a fight. That's not a fighting game. Go play something else. You know, you want comfortable strategy. You know, pull up a chair with some friends or an old man and play chess without a clock. Okay, the timer itself in Street Fighter games is there to provoke action. So yeah, I like that there's going to be more action sequences, definitely. Fighting games should be action-packed, and I don't like the idea that I'm watching other games more action-packed than Street Fighter. Oh, man. Don't get me wrong. Street Fighter 4 did a lot of things right, but they also did a lot of things wrong. So, that being said, let's get into the failed philosophy that's going on here. Back in 1994, I'm going to give you a little history lesson. They were coming up with the next Street Fighter series after Street Fighter 2, and they said, Street Fighter, it's become too complicated. So what we're going to do is we're going to simplify it to increase the player base and get more people playing. Sound familiar? Street Fighter 4 has become too complicated. So we want to make a game that new players can just jump right in. Now, serious competitors know what's going on. They may not be being honest about it. That's why I thought it was refreshing that we heard a top player be honest. People are so concerned with networking themselves that integrity is being lost. Don't pretend everything in these betas are good. It's not. I've been around long enough. I'm going to point some things out. Okay. This philosophy led to Street Fighter Alpha 1. How long did that last in competition? It's a silly scrubs game. And most people agree. Is it fun? Sure. Marvel Superheroes was fun. Street Fighter's fun. Fun is not the only aspect of a Street Fighter game. And everybody can't win. And I'm hearing statements that are devoid of logic, like it's easy to get into but hard to win at. People are listening to what's being said and they're parroting it, but nobody's thinking it through. And what do you want? Do you want Street Fighter to be like all these other games where the average mentality, can beat it? No. That's why human versus human is so awesome, because it constantly adapts to one another, right? So, the idea that it's somehow harder to win at when one person plays, another person plays, and either one of them, one of the players wins or it's a draw, happens regardless of the depth of the game. That's how it is. So the idea that, if it's easier to, it's easier to get into but harder to win at, that's a lie, and it flies in the face of logic. If it's easier to get into, it's easier to win at. If it's easier to play, it's easier to win at. Because somebody's going to win regardless. So the more difficult it is to play, it follows that that's how difficult it's going to be to win. So yeah. Okay, another issue with these failed philosophies is the idea that the more simple you make it, the more focus it has is on fundamentals. Again, it's another lie that flies in the face of logic. If you want to take that idea to its fullest extent, you might as well have quarter flipping contests and call that a deep game. That's something for like a beginner fighter or something like Rising Thunder, which, that philosophy only belongs with entry-level games. You want a Pee-wee League or something, that's what you do. You make a game like that where skill isn't involved. But the idea that it increases fundamentals, let me show you how it doesn't. Say you could Dragon Punch with one button, okay? You're not going to jump at your opponents unless, they do something that lags them or anchors them to the ground or in a position where they can't Dragon Punch, because all they have to do is press a button, right? That's not how Street Fighter is played. It's not just the strategy on the game. It's like boxing. It's like MMA. It's literally like an electronic martial art, a real esport where skills are involved, where the strategy is not just the game, but it's interpersonal. In Street Fighter, what you do, first round, what are you doing? You're data mining. You're gathering information to apply to the rest of the game and how you play it. And different people have different skill sets. So once you remove the skill sets, you remove a lot of the thought process. Like I said, if anybody can Dragon Punch, you just don't jump at situations where you otherwise could, depending on the player. The player is irrelevant at this point. Whereas in real Street Fighter, you test. You go, okay, after he just did this move, if he's not prepared, can he Dragon Punch? If I have him focused on the ground game, and I have, and if the game isn't as slow as Slow Fighter 4, will he be fast enough to get his Dragon Punch out in time? Or Mash Fighter 4. Sorry, it's like the first Street Fighter game you can actually mash in. It's just distasteful to me. But you're finding out what your opponent can do, and you're applying that to your strategy. When you remove the skill, you remove that entire process. That's a fundamental of thought process when it comes to Street Fighter. You're gauging your opponent's ability, and when everybody has the ability, that whole thought process is removed. So the idea that it somehow makes you focus more on the fundamentals, no, it actually detracts. It subtracts the fundamentals from the game. And so they're not even there to be focused upon. So so that being said, let's get into the other silly things this philosophy is causing, and the excuses or reasons being given. Again, like with Street Fighter Alpha 1, another failed game competitively speaking that simplified things. I'll try not to bring up Street Fighter Cross Tekken. Oops. But yeah, or HD Remix, a simplified version of Super Turbo that no Super Turbo player cared about playing because it was too scrub friendly and silly. You understand what's going on here? When it comes to competition, games that follow this philosophy don't last. So, and rightfully so. They're silly. They're lesser games. So, let's get into something I don't like about Street Fighter 5. The removal of proximity moves. Now, this is what's being told to us. We wanted to make sure that every move had a purpose. That has nothing to do with proximity moves. I hope people clued in when they heard that. You're getting paid lip service to get you to think away from your natural objections. Okay, you can have proximity moves in the game and they'll still have a purpose. So that has nothing to do with it. So you're already being fooled right off the bat. And they said, hey, we didn't want players to get the move that they didn't want to do. And sometimes that would happen with proximity moves. Again, start thinking about what's being said. When does that happen? That happens when a player misranges their moves. That happens when a player has poor spacing and isn't noticing it and applying that to their thought process when pressing that button. Okay, so this is not increasing your focus on fundamentals again. It's removing the whole thought process. It's simplifying the whole thought process. Do you understand? So I just find it silly that it's not obvious to people that these things are bogus excuses for either rushing the game or turning it into a new Fighter 5. Yeah, you just... Wow, that's what happened with Alpha 1, by the way. So what you're doing, actually, is you're decreasing the thinking process that goes on. What happened in games like Alpha 1 was most characters could just anti-air with Crouch Fierce. There's also a saying, when in doubt, low strong. What does that mean? That means there wasn't a lot that went into the thinking process of which normals to use. And that's what happens when you decrease your normals like that. So removing half the normals, or half the ground normals in the game, is actually decreasing the strategy and the need to think or to strategize properly which buttons you apply to a situation, and to pay attention to proper spacing and ranging. You press a button, you get that move every time. Okay, they're removing the Street Fighter out of it, and then people that aren't thinking things through are going, oh, that makes sense, because they didn't bother to try to make sense of it. So this is people need to be more savvy, and Street Fighter players used to be that way. These are like things that happen when you simplify the game, like Street Fighter 4. You understand Street Fighter 4 is already a regression. And hey, I love Street Fighter. I play them all. You see my page. I play Street Fighter 4. But just because I like something doesn't mean I'm going to be dishonest about it. And we need more honesty within the community. And right now, we're getting a lesser game because of the philosophy of accessibility. Okay, things don't need to be overly complicated at all for them to be awesome and strategic, but don't pretend that you're going to make a game for noobs that's going to satisfy the people that kept Street Fighter alive this whole time. It's a fact that Ono had to point to the FGC to get Street Fighter 4 made. Were we playing Alpha 1? Were we playing even Alpha 2? Were we playing Super Street Fighter? No, we're playing all the solid competitive versions of the games. That's what literally kept Street Fighter alive. And you're going to slap those players in the face by continually regressing? And the idea is that, hey, we're going to increase the player base. Street Fighter Cross Tekken didn't do that. You can pretend it was just about the gems, but really the problem was a flawed philosophy going in. When you call a game Street Fighter Cross Tekken, what do people expect? They expect a Street Fighter or a Tekken game, or an amalgam of both. And what do we get? We got Gem Fighters versus Darkstalkers, if you understand those game systems, with Street Fighter and Tekken characters, and the Gem system. So, fun is not the only thing going on. They're using a flawed philosophy that has failed multiple times in the past. There's only one philosophy you need if you want Street Fighter V to be great. Make it the most fun and competitive fighting game of all time. That should be the purpose of going in. The idea of accessibility, throw it out the window. It's already accessible. Okay, people learn complicated things on their pads and for all sorts of different games that aren't that serious. So the idea that you need to remove strategy and remove, thought processes and remove skills, it's ridiculous. They're removing skills from the game too. You have high damage and then you're going to bring back dial combos. I'll give you an example. The Excellent Adventures with Xavier Woods. Watch, Gutex and Mike show him a simple chain combo or a dial combo. Jump in, jab, strong, fierce, roundhouse, does like 30% and you're like, it took no skill. He learned it in 5 seconds. What's going on? And you think that's awesome? That's great for those 5 minutes. But really, you're not going to feel rewarded when you do that down the line. And that's why Capcom continually complicated, and I shouldn't say complicated, but continually solidified and refined the Alpha series into where it was the pinnacle at Alpha 3. Regardless of if you think that's your favorite or it's the most fun, it's the best one for competition. There's no doubt about it. Talk to the Japanese. They only had I don't know. Some people, like, the East Coast or whatever, we're taking like X-Men versus Street Fighter seriously. So Alpha 2 is that beloved fun game, but it is not an example of a superior and strategic Street Fighter game. It's very watered down and it has block delay. So when people go, oh, it's footsie oriented and stuff. Okay. Again, not everybody thinks things through beyond whether it's fun or not. So yeah, they need to just change the philosophy up a tad. They don't need to lie and pay lip service, and anybody who's smart can point out the flaws in what's being said. So yeah, sorry, getting a message and paying attention. But yeah, they're removing skills. You got lightning legs, for Chun-Li as a fireball motion. What, pianoing or rapid tapping's too hard now, huh? You can't do a 360 motion. I remember, people try saying that's mashing. What, you can't do that, but now it's too hard to do that in Street Fighter V? What's going on? What, are they gonna make Super single motion? You understand what I'm saying? You don't need to remove the skills. If you're gonna have the variety between the characters with the V skills, why would you sit there and make every character a quarter circle or a half circle motion character? Less charge characters? This is silly. What they need to do is they need to put Street Fighter back. Piano for rapid fast attacks like Honda hands or lightning legs. Just leave that in there. Don't get rid of that. Grapplers, put 360 moves back. Throw some charge characters back in there. Don't water down the game to where, I mean, it was literally said on one of the first betas that the normals you use for one character have the same purpose with another character oftentimes. What is that telling you? This is a game where you start playing one character, you're going to be able to play the other character, and the main difference are going to be the V skills and V triggers. This is almost like what made Mortal Kombat 1, when every move was the exact same except for the specials. It's just laughable. Okay, yes, it's going to be fun when it's new, but it's not going to lead to a greater game. Do people play cross Tekken in competition? No, and with good reason. It's just too simplified. Got those silly boost combos and single motion supers, and I don't even want to get into it. HD remix, oh, Tiger knee motion was too hard, so let's fix that. And yeah, do competitors play that? No, they play ST. Alpha 1, does anybody even remember it? No. So same philosophy. This is the kind of games it creates. And if you want to increase the player base, why don't you take this into consideration? Half of this success was the time of release. A new generation is coming up, a younger one, and you're going to keep the older one. I guess what I'm saying, long story short, is more people are going to play regardless. Showing up on TV, tournaments are getting bigger. The idea that you need to make a game for less intelligent players in order to make more people play, it's already been proven incorrect. And I've already given examples of how you're actually diminishing the focus on fundamentals and not increasing it. You're not just diminishing the focus, you're removing fundamentals. This is a joke. You can already mash in Street Fighter 4. What they need to focus on are things like, are they programming the way characters turn around properly? Or are we going to end up with unblockable setups or situations that, depending on where characters are on the screen, are literally unblockable? That would be ridiculous. So they need to focus things, on that. Dial-up combos? That's not like Street Fighter 3. Stop saying that. Street Fighter 3 rewarded you less for using chain combos than if you did links. But you get huge damage for your chain combos. If you're going to have huge damage, don't reward an entire lack of skill. Fine, you don't want to have one-frame links, that's fine, but don't benefit, people for not knowing how to play. This is just ridiculous. Anyway, I would say the game is still too slow. You want to say it focuses on footsies? Fine, then increase the walk speed, because that's a real focus on footsies. That encourages reflexes and things like that. The idea that, it's more footsie based when you got characters walking as slow as Bison or something like that is like, okay. Footsies is the art of creating openings. So the idea that, I don't think people understand that everything is, oh, footsies are better, this game focuses more on footsies and stuff like that. And it's like, there's a million definitions for footsies now. Really, if the game has dashing as opposed to fast walk speed, that already increases the back and forth ranging, or decreases the back and forth ranging action. If you want to go fast or you want to create pressure, you're going to have to, dash or something silly. Sometimes, yeah. So, yeah, that's, anyway. Another thing I don't like is benefiting somebody for getting their butt kicked. Never been a fan of the whole, like K-Groove or Ultra stuff. If you get your butt kicked, you get your butt kicked. Man up, get better, study, practice, and then win. So the idea that there should be no chip kills, I agree you shouldn't be able to do chip with your normals, but the idea that only supers can chip and you can't do it with specials, that's not Street Fighter. That's like saying, okay, I got my ass kicked, so now I can do chip damage to this person, but they can't do chip damage to me. Not a fan. Not a fan. They need to adjust that, in my opinion, and just not allow somebody to die from the chip damage caused by normals. But specials should still charge, should do chip damage, in my opinion. So that's kind of distasteful, in my opinion. But anyway, so these are some thoughts, and really, the game is being too simple. Put the motions back, put the piano, the 360s, add some charge stuff, increase the amount of normals so that people